So for today's Windows on Wednesday, we're going to talk about this. There, that looks standard. So for those that aren't aware, this is a Windows phone, a Lumia 635, specifically the Sprint variant. Back in the day, at least here in the US, every carrier got to have their own version of a phone, and basically, for the most part, they were the same. They just maybe had some tweaks done to them so they would only work on their network, or at the very least, require a lot of loopholes and require you to jump through a lot of hoops and everything to get it to work with another carrier. But this is the Sprint version. I picked it up. When did this come out? End of 2014, beginning of 2015, and I got it because I was on my way to Vegas for a trip and I didn't want to take my primary daily driver, which I'm trying to remember, it was either some HTC phone or maybe at that point I had switched to LG, I don't remember. But I wanted something cheap that I could, if I lost it, broke it, something like that, wouldn't be that big of a deal. And Sprint had just gotten this and I was very curious about Windows Phone, even though at that point it was becoming very clear that it was not going to be very successful. But I picked it up, $200 out the door, no contracts or anything, so that was kind of neat. And had some challenges with it at the beginning because I was trying to find a phone case that would fit it. And I went to this local mall kiosk, bought a case, went home, put it on, it would not fit at all. Turns out that the Sprint variant might be ever so slightly thicker than the initial release of the 635, and it would not fit. And I was able to corroborate this because I had went ahead and ordered something on Amazon, this just basic case here. And as you'll see, it does not fit really either. So, yeah, and I went back and reread the description for this, and it said that it would not fit the Sprint variant. So that was my bad. So I was not going to issue a return because it was only a few bucks anyway. And the pay to have it shipped back would have been more than what I paid for it. So instead I went to the Microsoft store and picked up one of these. And when I say Microsoft store, I mean the local one. And at first I went ahead and tried to, and it wouldn't fit at all either. But that's because, and this is one of the features I'll talk about, the back is removable. And this becomes the new shell, buttons and all. So, and it came with this nice little flap here that I was able to use to store my hotel key, the room key, so that I didn't lose it. And yeah, so that was kind of neat. It made it ever so slightly thicker, but that's fine. It had a nice little grip and everything. It did change the color of it, although over the years the case did not yellow really, so that's neat. So there's that. As you can tell, this video is not going to be super descriptive or informative in terms of specs or anything. I'll go over some basic ones. We're not going to go over the history of Windows Phone necessarily, or Windows Mobile, or any of that, although I will kind of delve into those a little bit. But the reason I wanted to make this video is because I was cleaning out some stuff in my office. I not too long ago was redesigning it so I can display my retro computer collection. And I found this in a drawer, and to my surprise, when I turned it on, it powered on. There was only 1% battery left. However, it does still hold a charge. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna power it on. I'm not sure how well it's gonna show up in camera. I might need to dim some of the lights, but we'll go ahead and see if what we can do with it. So I angled the camera a little bit to get a better view for both you and myself, because otherwise it's hard for me to see the screen if I have it constantly just flat. So I can have it angled towards me. Hopefully it'll work out for both of us. Also, yes, I know the screen protector is not on straight. I'm not replacing it. I'm leaving it on mainly because of the fact that it gives it a nice matte finish. It won't be reflecting as much light or anything else. Oh, there we go. And then looks like the camera's capturing it well enough, so I might not need to dim any lights, but I will if I have to. Set up connections, we're going to cancel because there's no SIM card in here, and I don't even think this would work anyway. But as you can see here, it's for the most part exactly as I left it before I did anything with it. So you got the game hub there, Vine, who remembers that? Looks like news is playing, but I don't know if that's current news. I am connected to Wi-Fi, so it could be current news. Some photos, you might even recognize that thumbnail there. Got Facebook Messenger, music and videos, and a bunch of other apps. And there's more stuff installed here too. You may notice that some of these icons are updating on their own and acting more like widgets. And that's one of the main things that I really liked about Windows Phone. So you can have little icons like that. You can make them larger like Facebook shows here. And once, depending on the app, once you make them larger, they may be live and interactive, like you see the news cycling and all that. Or you can make them wider like this, and that would almost certainly be interactive in some way, shape, or form. They're known as live tiles, and I guess the best way you could describe it is a combination of an icon and a widget. And it was kind of a neat feature, and it was one of the main features that made Windows Phone popular among the fans anyway. You know, all 5 of us, and I know that's a little bit harsh there, but you know, we all know how this ended up. It didn't succeed. Microsoft really, I mean, they tried, but they didn't. They marketed it, but they didn't. And it never caught on. And of course, it didn't catch on. So app developers are like, well, why are we going to develop for this thing? There's no point. Without apps, no one's going to buy your phone. If no one's buying your phone, no apps, you know, it's this chicken and the egg scenario, catch 22, what have you. One of the apps that was specifically missing from the platform was Snapchat. And back then, Snapchat was the app to have, especially if you're young. You don't have Snapchat, I'm not going to buy your product. iPhone had it, Android had it. Now, in Windows Phone defense, at the time, the owner, CEO, whatever, was a huge Apple fanboy and didn't even want to have an Android version out. But because of Android's popularity, I mean, half the world was using it basically. It would have been stupid to not have it. Windows Phone, on the other hand, didn't have that much of a market share, so why bother, you know, developing for it? There were a lot of like third-party apps that were just developed, and all of them got banned because they were accessing APIs they weren't supposed to. And I've even heard reports of some people's accounts being banned because they were using these third-party apps. That's just one of the examples of, you know, the reason why this ultimately failed. But it's a shame because, I mean, even right now you look at this interface and it's not really that outdated looking. And I'd say it's, in my opinion, it could even withstand today, you know, with the UIs that iPhone and Android have now. They haven't really changed much. You know, maybe they've tweaked the icons, made things rounder or what have you, but they weren't creative like this. I mean, even if you look at, you know, modern Windows 11 looks more like Android and iOS does than it did this. I mean, at least with Windows 10 and Windows 8, which I know was controversial, but, you know, they had more of this look. Sure, Windows 10 merged this interface with the standard desktop. Your start menu had this, and then your desktop had your traditional icons and everything. You had your taskbar with icons, and you could make the start menu full screen like Windows 8, Windows 8.1. And you probably did that if you were using a tablet or maybe even a touchscreen laptop. But for the desktop, a lot of people did not use that feature anymore. So before we take an even closer look, go over some basic specs. The original Lumia was released at the beginning of 2014, I think, March, April timeframe. And then the Sprint variant was released at the end of that year, maybe January 2015. It's got a 4.5-inch screen. Like I said, no front-facing camera. Only a one rear camera, which I believe was 5 megapixels. It initially came with Windows Phone 8.1. I've since upgraded it to Windows Phone 10, which we'll also get to in a bit. As you also saw, the back is removable, and I think with this case, it wasn't that easy to remove. Maybe that's why I ultimately just left it off once I got back from my trip. But it does have a removable battery, which I won't remove right now because the phone's still on. There's the SIM card slot, and then you also have a micro SD card slot, which pretty much no phone nowadays has, right? There's a rear speaker, and then of course there's microphones and all that other fun stuff. The camera itself, you could take selfies with it. If I remember correctly, the Photos app, I don't know, if you put it into selfie mode, would make either a noise when you got the angle right, or it would make like a vibration sound, I forget. Get that out of there. But the fact that the phone was as thin as it is, it still had a removable battery. I mean, nowadays, the phones are thinner than this, but not by much, and I don't think there's an excuse as to not having a removable battery other than now you've got to send it to the manufacturer to replace, or find some third party that has the ability to override any sort of locks or anything. But I mean, those are basically the main features. I mean, it does do 5 megapixel photos, videos for 720p. It did support 802.11n as the fastest Wi-Fi speed. As of Windows 10, supposedly you could do a wireless display, but I was never able to get it to work, although maybe we'll give it a shot and see. Who knows? I mean, I do have a few smart TVs in the house that do have the ability to do wireless display. So yeah, the Sprint specific version, this one only came in this color. It supported 4G bands 25, 26, and 41, which were pretty much common with Sprint at the time. It also supported CDMA, which the original Lumia did not. Sprint is a CDMA-based carrier, was, because they don't exist anymore. But this did also support GSM, so if you needed to travel or anything like that, you could pop in, as long as the phone was unlocked, you could pop in another SIM card and use it. So I don't believe GSM is really in use anymore in the US. I might be mistaken. But other than the 4G, I wouldn't be able to really use this on any mobile operator anyway, and I seriously doubt that T-Mobile, who now owns Sprint, would even allow me to activate it. So that's fine though. You wouldn't want to really use it today anyway. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the operating system. As I said, I had since updated it to Windows 10, Windows Phone 10, so it's going to be different than what it came with, but for the most part, it's the same. Again, this is my start screen, and if you swipe over, you can get a list of all the actual apps. Interface, for those of you that have never used Windows Phone before, but maybe have used another Microsoft product, might be familiar, because the entire user interface was kind of based on the Zoom interface. And for those that don't know what Zoom is or was, it was Microsoft's attempt at making their own iPod. It again, of course, didn't succeed, but a lot of people liked it, and they were kind of bummed out that it didn't, succeed. But because of that interface, they moved it over to Windows Phone and based it all on that. It came with a bunch of stock apps. These should all be stock apps here: camera, calculator, alarms, etc. I think Excel was a stock app. I don't remember. Might have installed it separately. Facebook obviously wasn't stock. File Explorer was, FM radio, food and drink, and I believe File Explorer. I think there's a modern equivalent you can get in the Windows App Store right now, at least with Windows 10. I don't know if it's supported in 11. But typical folders, things like that. So, and is it, if I hold back, yep, I can close the app. Again, stock apps, gadgets, Game Hub, Groove Music. Here, Drive Plus was their GPS app, Google Maps equivalent, etc. Instagram beta, because that's how much confidence Facebook actually, Meta, had in the platform. Don't remember what Creative Studio was. Probably some sort of photo editing app, like filters and things like that. Yeah, there's the selfie cam. So it was actually a separate app that you would use to be able to take selfies. I also had Maps, Messaging, which was the texting app, Messenger, which was Facebook Messenger, Microsoft Edge. Now this is the Microsoft developed version of Edge, not the newer one based on Chromium. Mix Radio, Microsoft Money, Movies and TVs. MS-DOS Mobile we'll get to in a bit because that was pretty neat. OneDrive, OneNote, Outlook Calendar, Mail. Those I believe were stock apps because that's how you got your mail and use your calendar and everything on the phone. People with your contacts app, phone, photos, podcast, PowerPoint, settings, etc. The rest is just, nothing important. Vine, again, another third-party app. Waze, surprisingly, was on here, and I'm pretty sure at the time Google had already owned Waze. Everyone loved using Waze Maps. In many cases, people still use it today over Google Maps or anything like that. So there's the Windows Insider app, because that's how I was able to get Windows Phone 10 on here. Of course, the Xbox Console Companion, which I don't even think would be worth using on this phone just because of the size of the display. But yeah, this phone came originally with Windows Phone 8.1, and because Sprint pretty much dropped support for it not long after they released it, it never got official support for Windows 10, but if you did the Insider program, you could upgrade it, and that's what I did. Now, after I updated it, I noticed it was kind of slow, and I said, well, I did an upgrade. I didn't do a fresh install, so I reset the phone, and it wouldn't activate on Sprint's network anymore because it was missing the components to do so. That's one of the drawbacks of carrier, exclusivities and things like that, is that they had these phones customized either hardware-wise or software-wise to really only work with their stuff, with their systems, and it was always a pain in the butt. So I had to, I think there was a Windows Phone Companion app for the PC, had to reset this to stock 8.1, which was then able to pull all the Sprint stuff, activated, and then I went and did the upgrade to Windows 10 with nothing else installed, nothing else configured, set up, or anything like that. Performance improved a little bit over what it was before, but it still wasn't great. Clearly, I think this had, 1 gig of RAM in it, maybe even less than that. I don't remember. Do I have it in my notes here? I mean, it had a Snapdragon 400, which was a 1.2 gigahertz CPU, Yeah, 1 gig of RAM, although it also could come with 512, but I think the Sprint version came with 1 gig. Nope, this one only has 512, so yeah, Windows 10 Mobile on 512 megs of RAM, that's not exactly, you know, carrier chameleon. Not sure if because it's in airplane mode or not, but yeah. Reset your phone, we're not going to do that because, again, I don't know what will happen if I actually factory reset this now. So, I mean, as it stands right now, a lot of the apps don't work anymore. Obviously, Vine isn't going to work because it doesn't exist anymore as a service. I might be able to sign into Facebook with it, but I don't have it signed in currently. This technically does have my Microsoft account on it, but on my account settings page on the web, I had removed it as well as other old devices that I no longer use. That's just more of a good security practice. Something about earthquake in New York. Let's see how current this news is. Hi, welcome to MSN News. We'll skip that. There you go. So more than likely those news articles are not current. Let's see location. Let's just type in New York. I'm not there now. No results found. So yeah, again, this is connected to Wi-Fi, but as you can see, this isn't working. And this is pretty much the case for almost all of the apps that are on here, unfortunately, which is a shame because it's going to be very difficult to really show anything on here. Well, let's go check out Game Hub, see if it works or not. Gameloft. I'm pretty sure none of these are going to work, but let's find out. Let's do Real Football 2014. Also known as soccer. Nope. The interface automatically switch to landscape. Let's see what happens here. And it did nothing because, yeah, it's not going to work. And that, like I said, I'm going to be seeing this a lot. Photos, I'm not sure what's on here other than that one thumbnail you saw. Oh, apparently only one. And if you recognize that, that is the display from the Toshiba T1900C I was working on. I just wanted to test the camera real quick, and it did work. And display is a lot more further disassembled than it is in this photo here. So yeah, at some point I'm going to have to continue on with that series, but I'm waiting for stuff to come in. So what else can we see that might work? Let's check out the weather. Couldn't find your location again because I have that all shut off. If I could type. Yeah, sure, why not? Yep, something went wrong. So that's not going to work either. Apps does nothing. And yeah, I mean, not a whole lot I can show you on here. Let's go ahead and, where is it at here? The one app I really wanted to show you guys itself doesn't work at all either. In fact, it doesn't launch or anything. This was released as an April Fool's joke. I think it was in 2015. And basically, it kind of simulates MS-DOS. It's not an emulator. It's not a virtual machine or anything like that. So, you know, some of the basic DOS commands will work, like dir, mkdir, things like that. If I remember correctly, you could actually create folders from there and it would show up in the File Explorer. The other thing you could do as a joke is type format C:, and hit enter. And then as soon as you did that, Cortana would step in and say, hey, nope, you don't want to do that. That's not good. So, but the other neat little Easter egg in there is that if you typed in win.com, it would launch a simulated version of Windows 3.1. That was kind of neat too. I really wanted to show that, but I can't. It doesn't launch anymore, and that really makes me sad. Oh well, I can't show you that, and honestly, I can't really show you much on here anymore because it's a defunct operating system. Microsoft doesn't support it anymore. I think on the higher end models, what was it, the Lumia 850, which I think at that point was Microsoft branded and not Nokia. I think anyone that still has that phone, some have managed to get a build of an ARM version of Windows 10, the full Windows 10 on here. I wouldn't even attempt it on this device. It would just slow to a crawl. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a bummer that this didn't succeed because, like I said, this user interface could compete with the other ones even today, in my opinion. For example, let's go here and long press, tap that, shrink it down, tap it again, expand it, and we'll just leave it be like that. But yeah, I mean, you can sit there and resize them, and again, you see this live tile here, which in this case will highlight certain applications that maybe paid Microsoft to highlight them, or maybe they're just highlighting on their own to say, hey, look, we've got Hulu. Windows Phone isn't completely useless. So yeah, so we'll go ahead and there. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was neat that you could do stuff like that, and you could completely and totally customize it to your liking. And like I said, it's just a really damn shame that it did not catch on, you know? I want to do one more thing. I want to see if I can get wireless display to work one more time. Bear with me. And yeah, no dice. It does, you know, display TVs that do support it. It just will not connect. And I don't know if maybe the protocol is different. It's Miracast or WiDi wireless display. It should work. My Windows devices can do it, but you know, the Windows laptops, PCs, all that support it. But this just never does it, and it only finds one of the televisions. And like I said, I've got a couple other smart TVs. They support the feature. It will not even discover them. So that's unfortunate because Windows Phone 10 introduced a pseudo desktop mode where if you had it hooked up to an external display, in this case it would be wirelessly, because I don't believe that this supported HDMI over USB, micro USB type B. But it would give you like a pseudo Windows 10 desktop. You'd have a start menu. It would only run Metro apps. There were no desktop apps available, but you were able to launch things like Office, Excel, etc. full screen, hook up keyboard, mouse, and type. And it still wasn't a full experience as the desktop version of Office, or even now the web version of it, but it was better than nothing. So yeah, that's my little look at Windows Mobile, Windows Phone 10. Like I said, I'm bummed out that it never succeeded, but I just don't think Microsoft really put any true effort into it. They did at the beginning, and then they kind of just gave up on it, you know, and that's a shame. But without app support, no one's going to buy your phones, and if no one's buying your phones, no one's going to develop apps for them. So, you know, I think Windows Phone 10 officially died in 2020. It might have been 2019. I forget. Maybe some of you guys might remember down below. But yeah, again, this was not like a retrospective on Windows Phone itself. This was not, you know, any sort of technical video. It's just really more just trying to go through some things and show you some of the features, and 99% of them don't seem to work. So that's that. Yeah, I mean, you guys have any experience with Windows Phone, any memories, anything like that? You guys still have your Windows Phone laying around somewhere? You know, let me know below. And otherwise, that's all, guys. I'll catch you later.